welcome to episode 9. We're going to be dealing with an operational topic this time, policies and procedures. So super fun, exciting topic, right? This is Miguel Miranda. I'm Roger Curlin. So really the overview for this particular topic, there are certainly very few silver linings for what we've had to go through as a society, a community, and in a hospitality industry. But one good thing I feel like it has exposed is the opportunity to rethink our policies and procedures from a new angle. I think that's been a really important part of what we've gone through. I remember overhearing a customer coming out of one of my partner's establishments, and they were like, can you imagine all the moving parts that it takes to run this restaurant and how they juggle all that stuff, and they put out great service and great food every day. I just can't believe how they do it. I mean, number one, I wish every customer had that understanding and knew what went on. But you really, that to me was like, wow, I love to hear that. And it really is so many different things that we have to follow. And the policies and procedures guide everything that we've got to do in our location. So every restaurant has policies and procedures, whether they've memorialized it or whether they follow it, everybody's got some. So Miguel, I'm going to toss it over to you to talk about some of the reasons that they're important to have and maybe some of the keys that we should look for in a P&P.
So, first of all, I wish I'd met that customer so I can shake their hand, because that rarely happens. But let's give a little more background. And obviously, we're talking to the choir here in respects to what's happening. But I want you to understand from how unique we are as an industry. We are the only business where we bring in the raw material through the rear door, we manufacture it, we sell it, and we give it to the end user in one fell swoop, and we do it in an industry where the staff generally is a part-time, not a long-term career, some could say disengaged at times, right, workforce, and the customer believes they can make that product themselves, cheaper and better potentially at their home, and they all have a megaphone, multiples, whether you're different, to give the world feedback on how well you did that, and they want it cheap. Right. There's no other industry like that. If you're going to buy a car, you don't buy, the dealer didn't make it. It was made somewhere else. Right. Doesn't matter what you're doing, there's multiple parts here. So if you're going to go into that world without having some clear lines of how we do it, right, you're basically walking into pure chaos and let the chaos just come out with something. And if you've got a great reputation, it's worked out well for you, God bless you. That may be awesome for now. I don't think you can sustain it. Eventually you're going to wear out. You're probably getting tired. You definitely can't expand. Right. You can't expand both in higher volume or bigger workspace or multiple units. So having some clear policies, how this ecosystem, how this little world's going to work and interact with each other is crystal clear. And you start off with always is, what do we believe? Right. What are the main tenets that we're going to, basically base every decision that we have? And it's not about having, when I hear about policies and procedures, this tome, this thick. And some companies do. I think back of the movie Coming to America with Eddie Murphy, and McDowell's had borrowed the McDonald's manual, and he had it in his office, and this thing was probably be a couple thousand pages. And yes, it's great to have that, but the reality is on your day-to-day, when you're operating, when you're, whether as a manager, as an owner, as a server, as a cook, very seldom do we see a tome next to them. Why do they operate? Because they understand at the very core what they believe in and how they're going to go do it. Because you're making a million decisions every single day. Think about all your employees, how many decisions they have to make, right, what is the basis going to be for it. And so if you don't talk about it ahead of time, if you don't have clear ways to make the right decisions, you're going to be in trouble. Right.
The simplicity that I think of, Miguel, is policies are the guidepost to behavior. That's your policies. Your procedures is how we do it. How do we do it? I mean, it's really simple. So those are the two things that we flow from. So integral to the culture of your business are those policies and procedures, and the delivery of them or non-delivery of them. The why, and we've talked about this before, leadership's explaining of the why behind the policies and the procedures are almost more important than the actual policy and the procedures. So making sure that leadership explains those things. And this is where memorialization comes into and is really important. You've got typically a decent sized staff, and they're front of the house, back of the house, managers, and you have to have, I always talk about consistency and communication are so important, and you've got to have a way that you can do that with your entire staff. And so talking about the why behind something is so key, and the habits that need to be inculcated into the culture, that's another one of those must-haves. And so if you could speak for a moment on culture, then we're going to talk about some other policies and procedures. So what do you think about culturally that needs to be communicated?
Well, what is a culture? Culture is a group of people that actually have the same belief system and because of that belief system, behave in a similar fashion. Not identical, not the exact same way on every single aspect, but they behave in a identical fashion. And they make 1,000,001 decisions or actions, steps, based off that belief system. And so I look at it, let's look at it, there's a culture of airline pilots in the world probably. And I would say America, but probably the world. And so culture, what do those airline pilots do? If you ever walked into a plane, you look over to the left before you walk back down the whole corridor. I don't fly first class, I'm usually in the back of the plane, so I got a long way to walk. But I'm looking down, and there's 1,000,001 buttons that are on that cockpit. My assumption is that pilot understands what every single button does. And he understands why that button's in place. And so he checks it, he knows it, he verifies it's there because it's tied to one main reason why he's there. And the reason the pilot is there is to get you from point A to point B safely. Plain and simple, that's it. It's not to get you there fast, it's not to get you there entertained. He doesn't care if the Wi-Fi is working or if if there's actually enough food on the plane for you to eat and you have little snacks. All he cares is, can that plane take off safely, fly there, and land safely? And if he does that, we've accomplished what's the why of his role.
And I love that navigating premise because I feel like culture is the compass point to which the culture is the embracement of vision and mission statements inside a company. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure, coined in 1954, and they follow that thing like a compass point, to be one of the best grocers in the nation. And so that's a culture. Publix has created a culture around where shopping is a pleasure. And it's not, culture is a lot of times seen as a customer-facing thing, and it is. But there's also an aspect to team-facing and staff-facing. And so that's so important to create that sense of culture all the way across the board. And the service of staff is how people are oftentimes interpreting your culture.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're the leader, who we're speaking to here, and so rarely are you actually interacting with your guests on a regular basis. Usually it's someone or some people in a couple of steps ahead of you who have to interact with those guests or make the food or park their cars or whatever it may be that you're doing from your business. And so the reality is, you have to service the people that service the people that service the people. So what does that really mean? Prior company I used to work for, one of their main statements we talked about every single day is that each and every interaction is opportunity to make an exceptionally distinctive experience. That was their main plan. And we didn't say not each and every interaction with the guest, is each and every interaction you have with someone is an opportunity to basically go above and beyond. Plain and simple. And so if I'm the owner and I'm interacting with my managers, or if I'm a GM, I'm interacting with my department heads or my frontline team, how am I going to make that experience really unique? And so could it be a pain? Could it be over the top? Of course. Am I paying you? So what? The point being is, if I make you feel special, if you do it enough, consistently enough, that person is going to take care of the person in front of them. You can't ask your staff to do something you're not willing to do. So yeah, culture is really about what you're doing, and the best cultures always win.
And the P&P, so the key policies and procedures, they incorporate right now, as we've pivoted a little bit, safety, attentiveness, value, and experience. For cleanliness and safety, there are going to be some extra things that are either mandated or that you choose to do to make your customers comfortable. So we know that's going to be there, and so here are some of what I feel are the key policies and procedures when it comes to what I call cleanliness and safety. So kitchen best practices, I think posting those messages, having them laminated, having them in a visible place where everybody can see them, and having accountability that's tied to that is really, really important. The location of the tools needed. Miguel, you did a great job in one of our earlier episodes. You must make sure the tools that they need to be clean and safe are in a place that makes sense for them, where they can get to them easily. And so that's critical. And that accountability, whether it's checklist, whether it's something that a leader comes through the kitchen and makes sure, whatever that is, there has to be accountability to the system, especially in the beginning. Bathroom best practices. Messaging again, making sure that there's messages are there. I think there's creative, fun ways that you can do that. I've seen that oftentimes where you have a little laugh as the consumer going into the restroom, and there's a joke there or something that reminds people of what they should be following for good hygiene. Cleaning charts, if you don't have one, I love seeing them. Even if it looks a bit awkward, on the back of the door, whatever that is, I know this place is being looked after. And then having a way that consumers can talk to management if they have an issue. You always want to minimize slip and fall hazards, so making sure you're doing that. I want everybody thinking about touchless in their restrooms as much as possible. There's a lot of different things you can do, where you place the towels when someone opens the door so they can drop a towel into the garbage can easily. And then finally, for cleaning the dining areas and entrances, deep cleanings, cleaning tables between guests, and touchless review of everything else as well. Miguel, want you to give us a couple of your thoughts on customer service and where that falls into a policy and procedure information for the restaurant.
As you were saying a few minutes ago about the touch points and things like that, two quick stories. One, obviously, what Walt Disney World every single night, well, not currently, but when they were open, when they were closed down every single night, they would repaint the high touch points of their parks. Right. And the reason being is that they always looked at it for the fact that every single day there was people there for the very first time. Mm-hmm. And my family we've been to Disney hundreds of times, and so we kind of started not noticing some of these things. I remember the first time we went, we looked at it and we were in awe. Oh, we're finally at Disney. And so we had seen maybe a gate where the hinge was a little bit loose, or the paint started to chip off. It would detract from it. And so how did they figure out those touch points? Well, it's because they actually walked it, they looked at it. So I think you need to look at your business point of view from a customer's point of view, saying, right, what are they going to see? What are they going to touch? Where are they going to sit down? And when you standing at a table is a different point of view than someone sitting at a booth. And so sit down in their seats and take a look at it. What am I going to touch? What am I going to feel? And that itself, I think, is the beginning of customer service. Right now, safety is our number one thing. Every customer that's going to a restaurant tonight for the first time as they reopen is looking around saying, how clean is this place? And if it doesn't feel clean, smell clean, or I don't see clean, that's going to detract of how comfortable I am with eating the food or even interacting with you. If I'm asking the staff a question about, hey, what did you guys do to get the place reopened? They're like, I don't know, I was just told to show up. Right. That is going to detract, and that is the customer service piece when you take a look at it. And so training the staff to look from that point of view as they're walking and set up their station, tell them, sit down at the table, sit in a booth. If the chair's wobbly, that's going to detract from the experience. Right. If the booth is dirty, it's going to detract. If there's gum and stuff underneath the table, that's going to detract from experience. Right. Have an experience to talk about it, and then obviously train your staff to know how to handle the questions that most likely are going to get asked. Right. And I think right now in this situation, most likely people are going to ask is, what are the things that you did to get the restaurant ready? How was your experience during this crisis? What happened to you guys? What is your overall game plan? The servers don't need to know everything, right, but they can't have too many I don't know and bewilderment looks in their face, or worse, I don't know, I was let go, I never really heard back until 2 days ago, I've asked to come back, hopefully this whole thing works out. Right. That's not very assuring, doesn't show where you're at. I mean, and all these things that probably you wouldn't have thought of a few weeks ago, a few months ago, it's probably number one in my opinion from a customer service point of view. It takes care, it's a basic thing you got to take care of. Right. That way you can do some special things on top of that.
And Disney has more than a few pages on policy on customer service and the procedures that staff follows to apply that. Yeah. And so put that together. Give them messages, give them stories that they can use as they interact with that consumer, that guest. I also feel like vendors are a form that we need to really look at customer service with our vendors and give them, this is how we are going to interact. And previously, we've said it in other episodes, vendors a lot of them come and go on their own schedule. Well, maybe there's a better way to do the policies and procedures when it comes to vendors and how those interact and to make it smoother for everybody. So look at that. Communication is so key when it comes to it. And you've spoken about it many times, Miguel, and I agree. And I call it the up-down leadership tree. So it's not just about me talking to you as the leader. I have to be comfortable with and give you the tools and comfort to talk back to me. Some of the best things that have happened in hospitality have been from a staff person saying, well, why don't we do it this way? Or what about this? Our customers have been saying that. And so that up-down communication through leadership is really important. And I look at it, respect, trust, and open communication is so important. The incorporating of the P&P, you've got to do that now to help the team feel safe. There's a lot of people out there, and we've talked about it, bringing back staff that may be unemployed right now and may be collecting unemployment, which is more than they could make working. You've got to make sure you create an environment that welcomes people back. And whether or not they're going to tell you, people like structure. Yeah. And they like understanding of expectations. So what are a couple of your thoughts on that as far as how leaders talk to team members and how team members are directed to communicate with each other?
Right. Well, obviously, first and foremost, having a clear set of values, whether you call it core values or the tenets of the business of how we communicate regardless of who you are. So no position should be allowed to speak differently to a different position. And that should be whether during a crisis or a pre-crisis or whatever. So if you don't have that clearly specified in your business, get it specified. And right now is perfect cover to relaunch probably something you should have done or launch something you should have done a long time ago. Saying, hey, now in the reopening, these are some new framework or the framework we're going to continue working here. Perfectly fine to do that, but have it in place. And it makes it easier for you because when someone violates it, It's no longer, I'm mad at you, Roger. It's like, hey, Roger, you're aware that we treat, we all agree that we're going to treat each other with dignity and respect. Yeah, he goes, the way you talk to Tim that way, do you think that fell within that? And you're going to tell me yes or no. And if you say, yeah, I'm going to ask you why'd you do it. Right. And hopefully you come to realize, man, that wasn't really good of me. If you say, no, I didn't recognize it, that tells you a lot about whether I recognize it. You can figure that out. Sure. But it's more about, we're having a conversation about a concept versus just my feelings towards you about the way you're behaving. So have a clear point of view there. And then the other part about communicating with the team is often. Often. And so if you're not doing at minimum one pre-shift or a daily huddle a day, you're not going to succeed. And if you're a place that has 3 shifts, whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, or just lunch and dinner, or you have multiple teams coming throughout the day, you need to have a pre-huddle to figure out, hey, where are you? How are you feeling? You feeling good? You're excited about today? You're not nervous about something? This is what's happening. So I want to hear from you. Then this is what we're going to be doing. This is our goal for the day. This is what's happening. Here's a new policy. I know yesterday we did it this way, but we learned quickly that doesn't work out because we're making a lot of changes now. Right. So today we're doing this. Right. So we need to have that. And you do it a lot. Why? Because you may have had that conversation with 2 servers, but you didn't get to the other 2 because they weren't there for that pre-shift. And then later on, when they don't do it, you're wondering what's going on. And I didn't tell everybody. Or I told multiple people, but they missed those shifts. And so having a huddle every single day, I'd rather have them get tired of me telling them. Right. It's like, I already heard this 4 times this week. That's great. I don't care. You were going to have this conversation. Right. And so one thing we should do with our students at the Hospitality Leadership Program, we made them actually record with their phone their pre-shifts. Right. And then that leader went back and watched it. And you'll learn so much about how you communicate, your body language, your facial expressions, what your team's doing when you're speaking to them and when they're talking to you. It'll help you really analyze how much you're communicating. And the feedback I've gotten from a lot of the students is that was one of the most valuable things they could have done for their own leadership. They understood that they really weren't great communicators for their team. Right, and it can be done in 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Oh, yeah. This is really. This is like it's in, it's out. It's making sure they know you care, that you're aware, and then you can pick up on those cues. I love that, Miguel.
One of the other things that I feel is really important is the HR stuff, right? So it's the hiring, the firing, the team discipline, payroll. This could be a whole huge topic. Neither you or I are HR professionals. So my note to people is be aware of it. If you feel like you've got to have that aspect in your business, certainly reach out to HR. There's great HR professionals here in town to get some guidance on that. COVID has brought certain HR issues to the forefront. We don't know where all that's going to fall out because it's shifting under our feet as we speak. But I just wanted to make sure when we brought it up in this conversation and we're aware of it.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll say quickly on that one, I'm seeing more and more services pop up that are add-on services to your payroll company that for a few dollars more, maybe $100 more a month, you can have access to an HR professional that you can ask as many questions as you need, whether it's a repository of Q&A, FAQ type situations, or a live person you can interact with. Highly recommend. That is a return on investment, in my opinion, of an expense you can have that you can get a solid answer. I would not advise you to trust Google to figure out what the answer is going to be. There's more, especially these things that are very nuanced, and especially in respect to COVID, it is changing on a daily basis. So having someone that you can reach out to on a regular basis and a set fee is a key. And then if you don't have a sufficient answer there, or they may themselves recommend you speak to your lawyer, then reach out to your lawyer.
Right.
The challenge is by having your lawyer is that sometimes you're obviously paying for that phone call. And I've seen plenty of times where people say, I don't feel like paying that higher price. I'm going to Google it, I'm going to go out on my own, and then later on end up paying a higher price.
Right.
So there are some HR services that most either scheduling softwares have partnered up with it, as well as payroll services that can help you out with it.
Absolutely, great point. And one of the other things, Miguel, and you mentioned it, I want to extend it a little bit. Most restaurants may be bringing back a different team. There may be some new people that are joining the team. So now's a perfect time to really instill that new team practice, that new policy, that new procedure for everybody, and create a higher bar for that in your business. Because I know when I go into a restaurant that has that team approach, where there's the pre-shifts and everybody knows their role, everybody knows what they're doing, you feel it. You absolutely feel it. And those are the most popular restaurants 9 times out of 10 as well. I also think now, broadly speaking, is a great time to reimagine the policies and procedures. You can recraft. A lot of people, a lot of hospitality places found themselves where they were through evolution and didn't know how to pull it apart again. Now's a perfect time for you to repaint that how you want and how you direct your leaders to inculcate that in the group. The final thoughts for me, Miguel, and then I'll toss it to you. If somebody doesn't have a P&P document, write one or get a consultant to help you write one. It doesn't have to be the tomb of McDonald's. It can be something as simple as 10 pages, 5 pages that cover the highlights of the mission, the vision, and how we're going to take our guideposts and the how we do it. So that's my final thought. I think it helps you expose strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to you as an organization when you go through that process. And if you do have one, update it. This is a perfect time to update it. What are your thoughts, Miguel, as far as a P&P and the value?
So one, definitely, I agree. Have something versus nothing. People say, well, I need to work on a culture of our company. We want to create a culture. Well, every organization has a culture. Whether you impact it or not, it's a different question about you as a leader. Whether your family, we're a church, or a nonprofit, or a business, a city has a culture, and so you have to, as a leader, decide what's it going to be, how I'm going to impact it, and how I'm going to convey that message, and how are the people who are listening to that message, how do they want to receive it? And so we're a little bit older, so we're used to having the books and the sign off and everything else. But more, I think, look back at it, it didn't really do service for us because we probably put that book aside and we rarely went back and looked at it. The younger team loves video.
Oh, agree.
And so instead of having this huge long tome, record a lot of the things the right ways. Grab your cell phone, which has great cameras now, a little tripod, or a little small $100 gimbal, and record your staff member greeting a guest
Great
at a
point.
cashier. Record your best cook making that dish and have them speak. Mic them up, very simply put, and record it. It doesn't have to be Oscar-winning video, but it's better than nothing. You put it up on a simple YouTube channel. You can block it off, or your own. It's something. There's a lot of things out there, as well as some great software out there for restaurants.
Right.
You can put these training videos. That in itself will definitely take care of what needs to be done. As I said before, a picture's worth 1,000 words. A video is worth even a lot more.
Agreed.
That will help out. So maybe your tome is only the true, what I call the 20-25 rules, that if you do it, you're probably not going to be here. You steal from us, you're probably getting fired. Have that listed, have them sign off, and then that's about it. Everything else, make it audio, make it video, make it fun, make it engaging. They'll watch it, most likely stay on top of it. But the final thing I'll say on this is, if you have it, you have to measure it. There's no point in having all these great tomes. And I've been to places before where I've walked into the executive's office, we're talking about their culture, they want me to help them with it, and they had their mission statement, their core values on a plaque on the floor behind their desk. I said, what's up with that? It's like, oh, we got to put it up some point. We just haven't had time. Okay, what is it?
Right.
And they couldn't tell me what it was.
Right.
And this was the chief executive officer of their organization. If it's not alive, it's pointless to have it.
Yeah, and I agree. And one last point, Miguel, that training aspect is so important. So you can have the policies and procedures. If you don't train, how can you expect the team to deliver on that, right? And how can you have accountability tied to that? So training is so key. And to your other point, there's great platforms out there that videos can be hosted on, tracked, tested, etc. So really great information today. Thank you guys on the policies and procedures episode. We'll see you soon. I'm getting hungry because the next episode is episode 10, the menu. So I'm excited. So see you soon.